Okay, I got the background picture. I'm not sure how to change it.
You click the video and then click virtual background.
I think I saw it. Thanks, I'll try.
Good. That's good.
Okay. So, shall I share my screen for the presentation, or you're going to share it?
It's up to you.
Okay, I'm not so familiar
Gandy?
with Zoom. Yes?
Gandy, our meeting will be opened by the NC.
Mommy,
Can you?
Hey.
there's Prof. Zulfikar. Prof. Zulfikar has been here.
I did. Gandy, once again, there is warm regard from Professor Zulfikar.
He is in here. He is in here right now.
Hello, Gandy.
Yeah.
Hi.
How are you? Hi. Recognize me?
Sure. Oh my God. It's been so long, but I've seen your pictures in Facebook.
Yeah, good to see you here.
It's great to see
Good luck
you
then.
again.
Good luck in your programs. Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you, Bu Mariam, for introducing me to Gandy.
Sama-sama, Pak.
All right.
Bu Anis nih yang cariin, Pak. Bu Anis Undusiah, Pak, yang cariin, yang kenalin kita.
Betul. Itu gengnya. So Gandy is Anis Undusiah, Anis gang. I told Bu Mariam.
You also.
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes. Tell me, whenever you're ready.
Pak Zulfikar is now professor.
Yes.
Pak Zulfikar is now professor.
I know.
Give congratulations for me. Congratulations.
Yes. Are you in the same university? Or they are different universities?
No, I'm from
different
university, but under the same minister. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well.
Okay, good luck then.
Really happy to see you.
Yeah, I missed Juan Soto yesterday. I missed his presentations. I just watched from YouTube then because I forgot about the sessions. Yeah.
Because of many activities.
Juan told me about it.
Prof. Zul, you are.
Juan Soto also your friend.
Yes. Yeah. We were in the same gang at Ohio. Okay.
Very good memories from Ohio.
All right.
Okay, I will try to share my screen and you tell me whenever I should start, okay?
Okay.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Respectable Miss Gandy G. Quijano Zavala, PhD, from Universidad Autónoma del Carmen, Mexico. Honorable lecturers of Wali Songo Islamic State University who attend this meeting today. And unforgettable, all of the audiences have spent their time to joining this event. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to be thankful today to our only followers, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Because of His mercies and blessings, we all can gather in this very wonderful. So let's recite Hamdalah together. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin.
Alhamdulillah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
With His beautiful mind and melted words that enlighten our path to be a better person, Mecca, Saudi Arabia, salawat and salam to our Savior Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the one who has been guiding us from the Astaghfirullah era to Insyaallah Jannah era. I am Azhara Mulai Ramadhani as the MC for today's event. I will guide you to this agenda. Guest lecturer, International Class Program of English Language Education Department. First agenda is opening. Second agenda is lecturing session. And the last agenda is closing. Ladies and gentlemen, let's open our agenda today by reciting Basmalah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The next agenda is lecturing by Miss Gandy G. Quijano Zavala, PhD. I will give time to the moderator, Dr. Siti Mariam, MPD. For her, please.
Thank you, Zahra. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, everybody. Good morning, all. Nice to meet in virtual meeting today. Together with us in this event, Dr. Gandy Griselda Quijano Zavala. She's from Universidad Autónoma del Carmen, Mexico. Yeah. Talking about Mexico, maybe our mind related to telenovela. Yeah, during 90s. Yeah. in Indonesian television, there is a well-known telenovela, Gandy. Yeah. This is the 5th session of our guest lecturer program, and I'm going to read the Gandy's biodata as our guest lecturer today. Yeah, Gandy Quijano Zavala hold a PhD in Applied Linguistics from the University of Southampton. A master degree also in applied linguistics from Ohio University, USA, Fulbright scholar. Yeah, so Gandy is Fulbrighter, and a bachelor degree in English as a foreign language from the Universidad Autónoma del Carmen, Mexico. She has worked as an English and Spanish teacher. Currently, she works at the Universidad Autónoma del Carmen as a professor researcher. That's great. She teaches courses focused on ELT methodology and research content courses for future English teachers and also translators. Her area of research focuses on language classroom practice, motivation, among other topics. Also, she tries to involve students into different language practice outside the classroom. A couple of years ago, she organized a virtual intercultural exchange with students from Mexico, Indonesia, and Turkey to foster intercultural communication. Also, she organizes projects where students teach English in their community. It means that public schools. Yeah. In her free time, she enjoys spending time with her family and pets. What kind of pets, Gandy?
Oh, you wouldn't believe how many pets I have.
Today, Gandhi will talk about language testing in terms of designing language testing. Yeah. I think language testing is very important for teachers, yeah, because in our Indonesian education, language testing is included pedagogical competence for teachers, Gandhi. Okay, now Gandhi, please you start with your presentation, yeah, assessment concepts, yeah, time is yours.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I hope everybody can see. I'm not so familiar with Zoom, so if at any point I need your help, I think I will ask you, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, well, yes, my name is Gandy, and I'm very pleased to be with you today. Thank you for this opportunity. And I'm very happy to see familiar faces here. And today I'm going to share some content about evaluation of learning. Yes, a very important concept, right, in foreign language education. Can you hear me well?
Okay, Gandhi, go on.
All right. Okay, so, well, I'm from Mexico, from Ciudad del Carmen, Campeche, in the southeast part of Mexico. Okay, and I work at the Universidad Autónoma del Carmen. So the program for today. Let me see if I'm sharing this. Okay. All right, well, what's going to be covered today? Today, well, we're going to discuss a little bit of language testing and assessment concepts. Then after a while, we're going to have a 5-minute break. And then we're going to continue talking about formative and summative assessment, all right? So that's what we're going to do today. So I have problems with my earphones. They're falling. Okay, so what is evaluation? Okay, as you mentioned, it's a very important key term everywhere, right? We constantly evaluate our students, we constantly evaluate ourselves, but what is it, right? It's a way of finding out how much we know about something, about a topic, how skillful we are to a certain extent about the knowledge that we're being taught, especially at school. But school is not the only environment where evaluation takes place. Evaluation takes place everywhere, every single day, right? Some of us are fan of evaluating ourselves, right? Having these talk to ourselves about how well we are doing at something, and also comparing to some other people. In education, it's a must. It's not a matter of comparing how well someone does, and but it's a need. Why? Because as teachers, we want to know how we can help our students, right? To achieve something, to achieve a goal, to achieve a learning objective, to move on, right? So that's why it's very important. So in the next slide, as you can see, we have this framework here where there are lots of words, right, that come with the term evaluation, right? So it's like in big font here, evaluation. And as you can see, the surrounding words, right? You can see fix, judgment, estimation, view, interpretation, right? Standards, judgment, right? Assessment, of course. Well, we can also see hypothesis. Of course, hypothesis is related here also in research. We test and we evaluate, right? But we have something important here. And I want to make emphasis on that because evaluation is important, but it can be, I'm trying to find a word. It can be, or it can cause anxiety for so many of us, or so many students, right? So I'm going to be emphasizing this aspect during the classes today and the next one, right? So I chose this picture here because it says feeling, perception, right? How we see the process of the evaluation, how we feel, not only as teachers, but as students. And I believe that it's always necessary to be reflecting on all of these aspects in order to do a better job in education, right? So I think we can see the chat box here. Let me see if I can, because I'm not seeing it right now. I want to. Okay. Well, there are some comments there. Well, hello, good morning. It's good evening here, everybody. But I would like you to share here in the chat box. When you think of evaluation, I have presented some words here, right? But when you think of evaluation, what's the first word that comes to your mind? And be honest, the first word that comes to your mind. What would it be? Share it here. I will write the question. What would be the first word that comes to your mind when you hear the term evaluation? Everybody can write in the chat box, yes? Or do I need to give permission?
Well, audience, you can write down in your chat box.
Okay, thanks, yes. Okay, what else?
The
Okay,
term
measure.
of evaluation.
Score. Be better. Yes. Assessment.
Evaluation is put off assessment and measurement, I think.
We'll talk about that, yes, in a second. Yeah, judgment, of course. Progress. Yes. Yeah, we evaluate to see our progress, right? So to know whether we are, if we're moving on, right, in our learning goal. Okay, yes. So those words usually come there, right? This part of measurement, we need to measure at some point whether we like it or not. Yes, as teachers, we need to measure. And we measure using different instruments that we're going to see today during the course, right? So results, yes, definitely, right? We test at different points in the school system. We test because as teachers, we are asked and required to test. And of course we test because we want to know if what we are doing is working. Yes, if our job as teachers is being effective and useful, right? So we're having some more words there as appraisal, okay, value, estimation, yes, right? Very good. So we have, let me see if I can close this now. Yes. So we have a simple definition here, right? By Adam, Mense, and Dake, 2020. And they say that evaluation is making judgment or determination of the quality or worth about an object, subject, or phenomenon, right? So yes, in our case as teachers, we are interested in knowing the progress of our students, yes. And we think of different ways to do it. Although there are some tools that are standard, yes, that are widely used all over the world. You in Indonesia, you use it, in Mexico, in the United States, in England, everywhere, right? And there are some others that might have to do also with culture, that are culture related. Certain things that might not be allowed, some other things that might be allowed. But yes, basically, we need to evaluate. But why, right? Why do we evaluate? As I mentioned before, is this constant need of knowing if we are reaching, right, our goal, our milestone, right? So for example, at home, do we evaluate at home, right? If you think of your family, if there are kids at home, if you have siblings at home, right? And I'm pretty sure you have seen this scenario, right? So, for example, parents ask their children questions, for example, about math, about language, about geography, to know if they know, right, the content that the school teacher is providing at that moment. So that is one type of evaluation. It's simple, right? But it's quick. And at the same time, those couple of questions tell us something about the progress of this kid, right? At school, of course, right? We always need to evaluate. But we evaluate for different reasons, as I mentioned before, right? So the most common reason that we evaluate is because we need to assign a score. I think one person mentioned in the chat box, right? Score, yes, because you think evaluation and what comes to your mind? Score, right? Evaluation is so important because we need to get a passing grade in order to go to the next level of the English course or any language course. We need to be evaluated and obtain an efficient score, let's say, a good score, in order to, finish like elementary school and go to middle school, or from middle school to high school to university, and so on. So we need a score there, right? But also, and I believe, right, this is the most important part of teachers as taking into account the role of us as in the humanities, right? To see our students as people and not as numbers, right? So evaluation, not only to assign a score because I need to, but because I want to know if my students are learning. And I want to know how I can help them because their needs might be different, yes? So that's why I emphasize this part here. More importantly, because we as teachers are interested in finding out learners' needs in order to implement any type of strategies or activities in the classroom, within the classroom. Now, why to evaluate? Well, many schools or companies interview candidates and ask them to specify their scores on international tests in order to choose the best candidates, of course. This is a fact, right? Whether we like to be evaluated or not, the reality is that we are always evaluated. So many of you and your professors here today have taken thousands of tests, have been evaluated many, many times, right? I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with the famous TOEFL test, right? That we need to take as international students to evaluate our knowledge of English, right? So if you want to go for studies at universities abroad, right? Like some of your professors have done, well, you need to take the test and you need to go through an interview probably. And that is being evaluated because you're not the only one. And that's where comparison takes place, right? You're not the only one that might be applying for that job. You're not the only one that might be applying for that scholarship, for that grant, etc. So they need to choose. And that's real, that's a fact, that happens every day and everywhere, right? And why do we do evaluation? I believe as individuals, we constantly evaluate ourselves every day, right? If you're a student, you probably want to know, right, if you have done a good job in your exam result. And but you also want to know how your classmates have done in that test, yes? And because we like that part. Of course, some people take it more seriously than others, but the point of evaluating ourselves, I believe that we should do it definitely, is that we reflect on our own learning and we basically get hands in action to change our reality if we are not happy or satisfied with our learning progress, okay? So you might have another reason that we evaluate. What do you think? And you can share it in the chat box again. And we have some new words, right? Estimation, achievement and analysis. So then the next question here is, okay, can you think of another reason we evaluate? Another reason, can you think of another reason we evaluate? Let's see, okay. Why do we evaluate? When you are in the classroom and you're evaluated, maybe you think, okay, why? And I know as students, sometimes we might think, why do I need to do this task, for example, right? And sometimes we feel it kind of a burden and we think like, oh, the teacher again, another task, okay? Another test, another type of evaluation. So can you think of another reason we evaluate in the classroom? And you can share it here in the chat box. Yes. Putri, right? Putri, Adila. To measure students' understanding of the material, right? Yes. Any other reason you might think? To make sure students remember the material well in case they may need it. Yes. And I think sometimes when we are students, we might lose the this idea that as teachers, we care about you communicating effectively, right? And we try to make everything that we can to take a task and to the classroom and to make it as similar to a situation that you may encounter in real life. And yes, the material we choose, the task that we choose, and even the types of evaluation that we choose depend on the learning objective, of course. And we want to know what else you need and what else we can do, right, to help you. So yes, very good. Let's continue. So when we talk about evaluation, and let me close here. If you think of any other reason, you can share it here with us, right? Let me close. So when we think of evaluation and when we discuss evaluation, we cannot omit an important term, which is testing, right? Testing has many advantages, right? And I would suggest to use tests for certain teaching situations, right? But what are some of the characteristics of testing, right? So testing has to do with what we're saying about measure, right? So testing has to do with an objective measure, right? It's like if it's objective and a number is given, people are not going to question too much the result, right? So standardization is another term. Let's think of the TOEFL test, all right? And I would like to know if you're familiar with the TOEFL test. Are you familiar with the TOEFL test? You can say yes, no. Are you familiar with TOEFL test? No, okay. Okay, so before I talk about it, I would like to know so that I can explain, maybe to give you a little bit more of background so that you don't get lost. Okay, yes, okay. I don't know how many people are there. I don't know where I can see it here in Zoom. But let's give a couple of seconds. Okay, yes, yes. All right. Anybody else? Because the TOEFL test, it's very important. Yes. As I mentioned before, is okay. I have I ask because sometimes I ask my students, and we assume as teacher everybody's familiar with the TOEFL test. Everybody knows about it, but no, right? So I mention it as I was saying, because as international students, it's a measure that is well known around the world, right? It depends on the country, but if you want to apply for a scholarship in the United States, definitely they would ask for the TOEFL test. In some other countries, well, they ask for Cambridge tests, different exams of Cambridge. Maybe you're more familiar with the Cambridge exams. I don't know, right? But what is the point of the TOEFL test? The TOEFL test is an international test. It's a proficiency test that measures your skills, your language skills. It measures grammar, vocabulary, listening, reading, writing, and speaking. It has changed over the years. Before, speaking was not included, but through testing, right, through the statistics in this test, they noticed a problem, right? The problem was that some international students doing, performing different areas of study in American universities, they obtained a high score in the TOEFL test, right? Grammar, writing, listening, reading, and to get to a program, right? But when they got to the classroom, when they got to the United States, they would have problems with communication. They would have problems sometimes being understood, right? So the professors or classmates wouldn't understand their speaking, their pronunciation, right? And sometimes they would even have problems understanding their teachers and professors. So later, the TOEFL exam, ETS, which is the service that supplies this test, decided to include speaking section. Yes, in order to test participants whether they would be successful in the academic environment in American universities. Of course, this was a problem for many international students, right, that had problems with pronunciation, with accent, right, with stress, etc. So, but again, it is a need because they want to make sure international students are ready to be successful in the program, right? To finish the program, to start and finish. And the problem that was happening in many American universities with international students was that international students had problems, right? Fulfilling all of their academic assignments or some of the academic assignments and understanding what they had to do. So this is an example of why we need to test, whether we like it or not, right? So the TOEFL test now has changed. It has a speaking section where they give you a certain amount of time. They ask you a couple of questions and you need to answer. And of course, the answer is recorded because it's done through the computer, right? So, and again, it has a writing section where you need to write an essay. So your writing skills are evaluated. There's an integrated task where you need to listen to a lecture, like you're listening to me right now. You listen to a lecture, discuss certain terms, and they ask you questions, right? Some listening comprehension questions. And so that you basically show your understanding of that lecture, right? So tests change also, right? Tests have changed. They don't become static, right? But when they are used widely used as this one, we mentioned that it's a standard test. It has been tested many times. Statistics have been run, and numbers basically tell us that the instrument is reliable, the instrument is consistent, the instrument is valid, right? So basically, that the test is efficient, right? You can see the second term here, efficiency. How efficient is the test? Does it test what it has to test or not, right? So this is one characteristic of testing, specifically standardized exams, that they are provided so many times, and they have statistics, and they constantly analyze these statistics, and based on those numbers, they suggest changes, right? So that's one advantage when it's a standard test, right? Because it's efficient as well. So it measures something, in this case, English proficiency. We also need to be aware, and this is a characteristic of testing, cost effectiveness. The TOEFL test is not free. We need to pay for it, yes? And we need to decide also, when we design a test, to how many students we're going to give, if we need to charge for that test in case it wants to be a standard test. As an example, I would share with you, in my university, every year they provide a test to university applicants to test basically their knowledge of English from high school. And they have to pay, students have to pay. It's not a large amount, but they have to pay for that exam. And so the university obviously had to design the test. They needed to run the statistics to analyze if it was cost effective, right? And what they have seen so far is that it is effective, right? And it is basically a diagnostic test. So what it does is to identify students' proficiency, to analyze which topics, either grammar or which language skills, need more emphasis in the classroom, right? So another characteristic of testing is objectivity, right? Numbers tell us this, right? And one good characteristic of this, if it's a good test, is going to be objective. So it's a good representation of a sample, yes? And another advantage or another characteristic is that it can be scored by machines, specifically these standards tests. Sometimes we don't have these machines at universities or at schools. I don't know in Indonesia, but in Mexico, it's not very common to have these machines unless they are national tests, right? If they are national tests, of course, they have machines to score. They are usually multiple choice tests where you need to choose A, B, C, D, and they are just run through the machine, and the statistics are just like, very easy to obtain. Now, a test, another characteristic is that we usually give a separate time to implement it in the classroom. As teachers, we usually say, okay, today is Saturday, right? I think it's Sunday there, right? If I'm not wrong, okay? So by next Tuesday, we're going to have an exam. We're going to have a test. So the next class session, the whole session, is going to be for a test, yes? And we separate that time from our schedule, yes? So before we say, okay, Monday, I'm going to teach this, Tuesday, I'm going to teach this other topic, okay? But Wednesday, we're going to have the exam, yes? So we basically take separate time to implement an exam. And of course, if it is a standard exam, well, sometimes you need to travel to another place to take the exam, and you're given certain amount of time. That's another characteristic in a test. You're given certain amount of time to answer the test. Sometimes it's 1 hour, sometimes it's 45 minutes. In the TOEFL exam, it's longer, maybe 2-3 hours, right? So it's a separate time. And the results, it says here, are not interpreted. Why? Because remember, if we have like an answer key, we just choose like which is the best answer, right? We have the answers and we just go like click, 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 right, wrong, etc. Right? Because we have it there. So it's not like I have to think, oh, is this answer, is it possible? Might it be correct or not? In my exam, I need to have an answer key that tells me whether it's right or wrong. Imagine in a standard test, like the TOEFL, evaluators are not going to be asking themselves, oh, is it a correct answer here or not? Because they are thousands of applicants, right? Thousands of test takers. So we cannot be like on one-on-one student to analyze results. And in the classroom, the tests are given after the instruction. What does this mean? This means that usually we teach a topic. So let's think third person singular, right? In present simple. So we arrange a couple of sessions to teach the present simple, right? So maybe a couple of days to present the verbs, some other days to present affirmative sentences, right? A couple of other days to present third person singular, right? Then a couple of more days, negative sentence, interrogative sentences. You have your lesson plans, everything goes as scheduled. And then after you finish that block, you decide to give a test, right? So you finish teaching, and then you decide to evaluate. So that's why usually tests are given after the instruction. When they are given after the instruction, we are not talking about diagnostic tests. We are not talking about placement tests. We're talking about progress tests. We're talking about proficiency tests. That means that these type of tests are evaluating your overall linguistic skills and performance, right? That's why it says it's given after the instruction. In the case of a diagnostic or placement test, of course, they are given even before the instruction begins, because the objective of a diagnostic or a placement test is to measure, right, your knowledge before learning takes place, right, before teaching takes place, so that modifications to the syllabus, to the lesson plans can be made prior to the beginning of the course. Yes? Okay. So let's move on here. So these are the characteristics of testing. So I hope that for the person that said that you were not familiar with the TOEFL test, maybe you're a little bit more familiar after listening to this. So now, another term that is related to evaluation, and let me just move the chat box. Another term that is related to evaluation is assessment, right? So evaluation, and then we have testing, and then we have assessment. Yes, I see a hand. Bib Salem, you have a question?
Hello, Bib Salem. Bib Salem, you raise your hand.
Or maybe it was a mistake.
Do you have any question, Bib Salem?
Not yet?
Not yet. Please go on, Gandy.
Okay, all right. Maybe he or she, I don't know, doesn't know how to, just like me, so no problem. Okay, so So yes, so when we think of evaluation, there are two key terms that should come to our mind usually. Besides measure, score, progress, etc., right? And evaluation, that would be like at the top, right? Evaluation. And then would have testing. And then we would have assessment. Yes. So we have seen that testing is more objective, right? It has to do with not interpreting, right, what it means, but just deciding whether something is right or wrong. And it can be provided also to multiple test takers at the same time. Yes. But now assessment, although it also measures, because both testing and assessment measure, right? In education and language learning, they are seen with some differences. Yes. So assessment is usually related with different methods or tools. So not only an exam, not only a test, but different tools or tasks that we can provide to our students to check the learning progress. And this is the second characteristic here, the learning progress. Right? In a test, we usually want to see proficiency and to measure in order to compare students to see their development, right? But here with an assessment, we want to see the progress. Like it's more subjective, it's more personalized in one way, because it might, the tool that we choose might depend on the educational needs, yes? If we check the progress, we know what is missing in our class, and we can make these changes, right? To adapt the task or the tool to our learners' needs. So that's why it is said that it's procedure-based. It's not linear. It's like I teach and then I test, right? So I teach present simple, I test present simple with an exam. It's not that linear, right? It's a procedure when we talk or we refer about assessment. I provide a task. Let's imagine my task is a presentation, right? So I ask my students, I assign a topic, right, about what is your daily routine. Let's stick with the same topic, okay? What is your daily routine? You need to present it in front of your classmates, and I'm going to evaluate, yes? I have a rubric with me with the aspects that will be evaluated. And the student presents, so I check, right? So, but I do not only assign a grade, right? If I need to assign a grade, but I check what my student needs. So if I see there are problems with pronunciation, for instance, then I make changes to my lesson plans or to my lesson so that I can help this student, yes? So that's why I teach, I test, I teach again, maybe the same point, because I have seen that my students haven't understood the topic. Maybe I test again, and if it's necessary, I teach again, right? So it's procedure. It's not like I teach, I test, and then I forget about the topic, even if my students got a low score in the test, right? So that's why it is said that results are mostly interpreted. In the example of the presentation, although I have my rubric, if I check, okay, pronunciation, okay, fine, and other points, somehow I'm interpreting those results, right? And so that's why it is different from testing. In testing, it's just a number and I don't need to interpret more. But in assessment, I need to think about it. What does it mean? Yes. And the final point here, may be altered during instruction. Right. So again, as I said, as it is procedure-based, right, it may be altered during instruction. Again, if I see a need, right, it's a matter of I get in charge of the problem because I see my students are not understanding, or I just move on. A more humanistic approach, right, that we find in assessment is that we care about that learning need. And as teachers, we use all of the strategies that we have in our hands, different methodology to help that student learn the learning objective of the lesson. Yes. So I think there are still problems with the hand here, but I don't know if there are any comments or questions so far. Are we writing the chat box? Are there any comments? Okay. So far what we have seen is the term evaluation, right? And that it is divided in two main areas, right? Testing and assessment. Both mean to evaluate, right? But testing is like a more objective way of finding out the progress of a student, in this case, the language progress. And an assessment is a more subjective, more humanistic way to find out the student progress or proficiency also, okay? So let me check the time, okay? I still see the hand raised, but I don't know. I don't think if Stalin has a question. I think there's only a problem of not knowing what to do with the hand. Okay.
I guess.
All right, so let's go to the next one because we will soon go on a break so that we'll take a 5-minute rest. Okay, so I want to share with you this table by Richards and Renandia. Okay, a little bit old, I know, but just a reminder of how it was the old paradigm and the new paradigm now in evaluation, right? So as you can see in the old paradigm, and many teachers still use it, that doesn't mean it is wrong. It's just a different way, right, to see things and how we use them in the classroom. But the old paradigm in language specifically, in language evaluation, it was very focused on language, okay? So grammar, structure. So talking about the third person rule in present tense, right? So if you are writing the S correctly, the IES, changing the Y, writing IES or only S, etc., right? So it was very focused on language, on grammar, on structure, and it was very teacher-centered, right? In the old paradigm, as you know, it was everything about the teacher, and basically a little bit more focused, I would say, in the teacher's needs and not the student's needs. The skills were isolated. They were evaluated like reading, right? One quiz for reading or an exam for reading, another one for writing, another one for speaking, right? So differently, isolated. And the emphasis on the product. So basically, it was not the, if in the example of the presentation, if you assign the presentation, you don't evaluate how students start with the presentation and how they finish with their presentation, but you only focus on the final presentation, right? Not of everything they had to do and prepare to get to that presentation, right? And of course, one answer, one way correctness. This is very a characteristic of the test, right? It's either right or wrong. There's nothing in the middle, right? And of course, a test, right? It's an exam that measures something specifically. So that was the old paradigm, right? So you can associate this old paradigm with testing, right? Now, in the new paradigm, it's not so much the language and the structure, but communication, how well we or our students can communicate with other people, right? If the message is sent across, if the person can understand what we are saying, right? Because maybe our grammar is perfect and we get a perfect score in a grammar test. But when we need to express our opinion, when we need to communicate something with someone, we are not so efficient, right? So the focus here is like on communication. It might not matter, right? Of course, it's always important to be accurate, but the focus would be if the message was understood. Yes, not if you made grammar mistakes, but if the receiver got your message, right? And of course, it was learner-centered. It was more focused on the student, right? Now the skills were not like only reading, writing, separated, but now an integration of the skills. The emphasis was on the process, right? And it was open-ended, right? Multiple solutions, right, for the results of the students, right? It's not only correct or not correct, but maybe more analysis whether it was, whether it's something that could be appropriate, right, when we communicate. And
Ako sih kak ngerti Umi. Nur Umi. Join sekarang.
I'm not sure if that's the question.
Songo 57.
Or
Absen
it
mas.
was the microphone. Was it just the microphone that got activated or she had a question?
Go on, Gandy.
Okay, this happens.
Interruption.
Yes. Okay, so yeah, and the last point here, tests that also teach. Yes, in the old paradigm, basically, okay, we give a test, we say, yes, this student got a good score or passes to the next level or not. But here, when we provide a test with a new paradigm, we want to see what we can learn and what we can also teach from the results of that test. Yes, it's not only we assign a score and we forget about it. No, it's we provide a test, we give a test, but then we see the results, we analyze our learners' needs, and then we can teach them something about that, right? We can reinforce their learning. So I don't know if there are any questions so far. I think it's
So far,
yes.
so good.
Okay, so how about we take a 5-minute break? Yes, is it okay?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes,
Or
yes, so that you
this
can stretch,
audience,
or you want to go on?
It's okay, Gandy. We go on.
Okay,
Oh,
so
Gandy,
let's go.
please.
Yes.
Please, we discuss about it. Number four. Old paradigm emphasis on product, and then new paradigm emphasis on process. I
Yes.
think product as important as process, Gandy. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it's very important.
What do you think about it? What do you think about it?
Yes.
Number one, number two, number three, number 5, 6. I do agree, but number 4. make me curious about it, because I
Yes,
think.
I see what you mean. Yes.
So
I-
what's
Mhm.
your explanation?
Yeah.
Please explain more detail about it.
Yeah. I think both are important. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm not choosing one or the other. I think both are
Uh-huh.
important. And to be honest with you, before a couple of years ago, I would say product only.
Mhm.
Okay. It's whether you get a right answer, you know, or you don't know. Yes.
Mhm.
And but some topics, you know, of EFL and reading and researching about it made me analyze a little bit deeper this part. Is it the product the only thing that matters? And how can we evaluate that process, right? And I personally think, as I mentioned, both are important. Yes. In the end, we assign a score to the product, to the final part. But sometimes we don't care about the process, and the process can tell us many aspects that can be improved in our lesson. For example, I will provide an example, right? So in a portfolio would be the final product, yes? So you ask your students, okay, your portfolio, and at the end of the course, you assign all of the aspects that need to be included there, right? And you evaluate the last portfolio. In the portfolio, maybe your students might include a writing assignment, a speaking assignment, maybe they need to record themselves, interviewing a person, etc. But you're only seeing that final stage. If you do the process, you go step by step. So if your portfolio evaluates 3 aspects, for example, and one is speaking, and in the speaking assignment, you basically include an interview to a foreign person, right? So in the process, you're going to be helping your student to develop the interview guide, for example, right? To write the questions. That's the process. The product would be the recording of the interview, and that's what you're going to evaluate. But the process can give you more details, right? Also about grammar in this case, about writing, and what are the students' needs. And as a first task in the process, right, you ask your student, okay, before you go on and interview a person, a foreigner, okay, show me your questions. What kind of questions do you want to ask? And you supervise those questions, right? And you get on a one-to-one with your student, and your student can say, okay, I want to ask this part, but I don't know how. Or maybe they have a question and that's not what they want to ask. They want to ask something different, so you can help there. So that's why I say that both are important. Okay, the process, step by step, guiding students, and of course, the final product. Yes. So I don't know if I have convinced you, but but that's the way I like it now. I prefer to see both the process and the product.
Product. Mhm.
Yes.
Thank
I think
you.
that sure. Okay. I think there are some questions here. Okay.
Yeah, some question
Mhm.
from Dr. Diaz Andres. Open-ended questions versus closed-ended questions. How do we
Yes.
differentiate them?
Yes. This is a very common problem sometimes for students, especially when we want to write down questionnaires, right, for research. And sometimes we don't know how. But an open-ended question, it's a question that we ask our students. For example, what did you do last weekend? Right? We want our student to express and we want to check speaking, pronunciation, right? And we ask a question of, what did you do last weekend? That would be open-ended question, right? And a close-ended question would be something that has specific answers, right? Did you have a good time this weekend? And then you have options. Yes, no, okay, maybe, right? So that's like the main difference between open-ended questions, where we usually use what, where, how, right? To basically elicit, right? To elicit students' answers. Otherwise, we just get yes or no, which is a closed-ended question, right? It doesn't give more room for the student to express themselves, right? Just the common question like, did you understand, after we explain a topic, right? Did you understand the class? And everybody says, yes, no, right? But if we ask an open-ended question such as, what are some of the difficulties you had understanding this topic? Oh, then the student can give you more answers, right? Because yes or no, it might be a quick way to find out something, but it's not always accurate, right? At least in my experience, I don't know in Indonesia, but when we ask in Mexico, we ask students, do you have any questions? Okay, they say no. And then they turn to the next person, to their classmate. It's like, did you understand? I didn't get this part, right? I don't know if it happens in Indonesia. Yes? Okay. But in Mexico, it's very, very common, right? And so that's why open-ended questions help us, right? And of course, you can always ask a student to check understanding of a topic by asking to explain it, right? But that's what I would say, okay? So I think there's another question here. It
Nita,
says, shall I read it? It
I
says,
want to ask, how can a teacher convince, how can a teacher convince their students that it doesn't matter if we do? What does it mean?
okay, how can a teacher convince their students that it doesn't matter if we do problems as long as we practice English skills such as correct communication? I think what you mean, Anita, and you can tell me, like when we ask, and yes, I think I do this too. Okay, when we say it doesn't matter if you make mistakes, yes, is that what you mean? Just go on, communicate. Is that what you mean, Nita? It says, because many students are afraid, great, I got you. Okay, because many students are afraid to speak English, yes, to other people or to non-native speakers, yes, because our grammar is still wrong, including me, thank you. Don't worry, this is a very common problem, and I'm pretty sure if you would talk to my students, they would agree with you, yes? And believe me, I think this fear of communication, we all go through that, right? The problem of communication. We are always worried that we might be making grammar mistakes, pronunciation mistakes. But when we teachers tell you, it doesn't matter if you make mistakes, just communicate, it's because we need the practice. And the more you communicate, the more you speak, the more you make mistakes, the more you will learn, right? And because we also need to be aware that mistakes are part of learning. So at some point, we need to loosen ourselves to communicate, yes? And So yes, when your teacher tells you, don't worry about your mistakes, just go on or just participate, is because we are encouraging you to practice the language, especially at the beginning stages. I don't know if C2 would agree with me, right? And but at the beginning stages, it's very hard for us to open up and communicate because we are afraid of making mistakes. So what we're trying to tell our students, speak. When we start reducing our anxiety and we open our mouths and we say something in English, even if it's wrong, somehow we feel a little bit more confident. Yes. I will share with you one experience that I had a couple of years ago. I was assigned a group of students that had failed the English course. Okay. In our university, if you fail one course, you need to take it again. There is no test. So you fail the basic English course, for example, and you need the next semester, you need to take that course again. I hope that that I made myself understood. So I was assigned this group of about 10 students that had failed the previous course, the basic course, and they were retaking the basic course again with a different teacher, in this case, me. So I had to make some decisions because I knew these students had failed before, they had problems. So, and that's why now, and I haven't always been like this, but now I think more about this part, about being a little bit more human and stepping into students' shoes, right? So I thought, okay, first I need these students not to be so anxious and nervous about failing again because they have already done it. So I talked to them in a kind of informal talk, right, outside the classroom. And I started asking them why they had failed and how they felt about it. And of course, all of them were frustrated, were very sad that they had failed. They thought that they couldn't move on, that they couldn't have any type of progress, and that they were doomed to fail again. So I had to do something different. So I decided to apply different types of strategies. But one of the strategies that I used was to let students speak. It didn't matter how many mistakes they made, just speak. And little by little, they started gaining confidence. Why? Because I was not correcting every time they made a mistake. Yes, that's a different type of evaluation. We evaluate and we correct in different ways. So my decision here was not to correct every single mistake, but to write down the students' mistakes in a notebook. And then at the end of the session, I would write it down. I would write them down on the board and explain why they were wrong without pointing out at any student so that they didn't feel ashamed. But there are different ways. But that was my way of saying. So I would say, go on, practice. And when you're a little bit more confident, okay, you can go back and always check those grammar mistakes. Because of course, grammar is important. We cannot say, oh, just communicate, but if you don't know grammar, if you don't have the correct vocabulary, then how can you communicate? It's just step by step, okay? But don't feel too bad if you make, if your grammar is not perfect, if your pronunciation is not perfect. That's part of communication. I always tell my students, when you feel like I won't speak because I made mistakes and maybe the other person won't understand. Think, do you speak perfectly in your own language? Do you make mistakes in your own language? Yes, we don't speak perfect. I don't speak perfect Spanish, right? And I made mistakes. My family speak and they make mistakes in Spanish. We all make mistakes in our native language. So we need to make mistakes in the foreign language that we're learning, right? So yes, okay. Right, great. You agree with me. Yes, let's just learn from each other. You make a mistake, okay, take notes and go on. That's part of the process. All right. So then we have a couple of questions here. I had thought about doing teamwork, but let's just, I have 4 questions for you, okay? And let me see if later I can share, okay? What would be your own definition of evaluation? If you have to write your own definition of evaluation, what would it be, okay? How do you usually feel when you're being evaluated? What kind of evaluation would you rather have as a student? Remember, we have discussed 2 today, right? Testing and assessment. Yes, in testing, we have basically exams, quizzes, right? And in assessment, we may have like a portfolio, we may have a journal, we may have a presentation. So which one would you rather have? And can you recall examples of evaluation you have had in your experience as a language learner? What are some types of evaluations that you have had in your experience as a student? Okay, and I'm going to stop sharing this because I want you to answer something. Let me see if it works. Okay, I'm not expert in technology yet, so I'll try this. Let me see. Just give me a second to find out what I want to share with you. Okay, let me see. Where is it? Okay, I'll try to share this with you in the chat box. Let me see if you can get in there, please. I have shared a link and the 4 questions are there. Okay, so tell me if you can have access, please. I want you to write down your answers there. Can you see the link?
Not yet.
Let me see if I sent it. Well, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Let's see if you can, if it works. Right? These are the same 4 questions that I was presenting. Take your time and write down your answer. I hope everybody can see it and can have access to the link. So the first question is, what would be your own definition of evaluation? How do you usually feel when you're being evaluated? Number 3, what kind of evaluation would you rather have as a student? And number 4, can you recall examples of evaluation you have had in your experience as a language learner? Okay.
Please you write down
Hello, Mrs. Gandy.
Yes.
Okay, I move to this class.
Sorry. Have you been able to answer the questions? Oh, I can. Oh, okay, okay. Let me. Okay. Give me a second. Can you try again, please? Let's see if it works. It doesn't work with this new link? Okay, great. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, yes. So reflect a little bit on these questions and write down your answers. Thanks, thanks. Okay, and I'm monitoring if I'm getting answers. Okay, yes.
Okay, please you write down in the chat box in discussion teamwork. How do you usually feel when you are being evaluated? Can you recall examples of evaluation you have had in your experience as a language learner? Nurus Soliha, please you try to answer some questions here.
Feeling
Feeling
nervous.
nervous, Gandy.
I see. No, no, don't feel nervous. It's okay. It's not a test. It's not a test. I just want to hear from you your opinion. So take your time. It's fine. It's just a reflection exercise, right? What is evaluation for us? Let's remember what types of evaluations we have had as students, right? And it doesn't have to be from university, I mean, tertiary level. No, you can think of evaluations that you had in elementary school or maybe middle high school, right? What kinds of evaluation? How have your teachers evaluated your knowledge or your progress or your proficiency in language? Are you aware of that? Of how we are being evaluated, right? Okay, so we have one that says it works and I'm done. Okay, let me see. Okay, yes, I'm getting some answers. Okay. Okay. All right, and let me see if I can share this part. And don't be nervous to share what you know, your opinion, or don't worry about writing mistakes. Remember, this is not a test. I'm not evaluating your English. I just want to know like the general idea, right? And to know also if you can recognize when you have been evaluated, right? Because sometimes you were evaluated and you didn't even know that you were being evaluated, yes? So let me see. So I got 5 answers so far. Can you see the results here? And I always check if my microphone is on. I think so. So what are some answers? Okay, so we got 9 answers. Okay, so we have, what would be your own definition of evaluation, right? Right, and we got some answers here. So we have, okay, in my opinion, evaluation is an activity. Okay, it has changed. Okay, to respond to activities that have been carried out. Okay. So another one here, evaluation is an activity that the teachers or evaluators do for something or for the product. Yes. Okay. They keep moving. Let's see. A test. Okay. A test to see the student's ability in understanding the materials given. Yes, I think that's the most common form, right? We are very familiar with tests. Yes. So we have one more here. Okay, measuring students achieving the goals of learning. Right. Okay. So measure, of course, whether we like it or not, because somehow, you know, measure implies, you know, that some people are at the bottom and some people are at the top. Whether we like it or not, we need to make that comparison, right, to see how these at the bottom, right, move forward or go to the top, right, because that's what we want. You can start here, but we need to evaluate, right, this progress so that you can get to the level that you should have or that you want to reach. So in the second question, how do you usually feel when you are being evaluated? Okay, and I'm very interested in this one, right, because I usually get my students to tell me they are afraid of being evaluated, right? Even the ones that are very proficient, I think this is normal to a certain extent. We are all afraid of being evaluated because we don't want to fail, right? We always want to do a good job in what we do. So this is completely normal. So how do you usually feel? Well, you have here, I feel it when I finish doing something and if I make a mistake. Okay, yes. Right. So you feel like, okay, I have finished this and I made mistakes in this. Your mind is constantly telling you what you have done right and what you have done wrong. Yes, okay, definitely. We have completing the worksheet. Oh, let me see. Okay, what is it? Completing the worksheet, practicing speaking directly through conversation. Okay, right? So when you practice directly through conversation, okay, you usually have like a worksheet to check, right? Some of the components of speaking to guide you, okay? And then try to accept all of the suggestions and improve myself. Oh, this is a very good point. Okay, accept the suggestions. A very important part of evaluation is that in the language area, is that as teachers, we provide feedback. We tell our students what they need to improve. So we make comments. Yes, this is normal. And accepting those mistakes as a way to grow is excellent. Do not take it as a way, you know, to feel inferior or that you don't know. It's just a part of pointing out what aspects of language you can improve. And that's the part of evaluation, remember. Right? Specifically assessment, if you're being assessed, remember we assess because we want to identify how we as teachers want to help our learners, yes? So it feels nervous when you're directly evaluated by teacher, even you have understood about the subject. Yes, it's very intimidating, right? It's very intimidating to be in front of the teacher in a speaking exam, right? And you're feeling judged. Remember at the beginning, we have this, the frame with lots of words of evaluation, judgment, all right? Feeling. Yes, we feel judged. And so we are afraid of this process. We become anxious and sometimes also we make mistakes because of these high levels of anxiety. So very tense. I feel very tense, but I'm very happy because I can know fix your mistakes. Yes, of course, right? So it's okay to feel this way, but keep in mind that it's for a good purpose. Your teacher is trying to help you. Yes. You feel afraid, but you keep trying. Yes, right? And you have to prepare well, definitely, for a test. In the third question, what kind of evaluation would you rather have as a student, right? Which one would you choose, right? So which kind of evaluation would you rather have? Journal, okay. Grammar, phonetic, and writing task of IELTS, okay, yes. When we use as teacher some forms of evaluation from standard tests, we're helping our students to get familiar with the process. And this is a very important part. When we're going to take standardized exams, such as the TOEFL, Cambridge examination, IELTS, etc., we need to get familiar with the evaluation format. Yes, it's very, very important. So if your teacher provides this type of evaluation, good, it will help you, right? And non-intimidating evaluation. Okay, this is interesting. Non-intimidating evaluation. What do you think, Siti? Non-intimidating evaluation. Have you ever felt intimidated during an evaluation? This is really interesting. What kind of evaluation would you rather have as a student? Not an intimidating evaluation. Interesting, don't you think? I know sometimes as teachers, and that's why I wanted to emphasize this part during our talk today, of being or having a more humanistic approach, at least in the classroom, right? We cannot do anything about standardized exams, but at least in the classroom, to try to make it, to try to have a comfortable atmosphere so that the student feels more relaxed and more natural when answering something, right? And one way to do this, right, to assess the student so that she or he doesn't feel intimidated because they know that they are being evaluated, is evaluating the student without telling them that then it is an evaluation, then it is an assessment. I have done this in the classroom. I just tell students to get ready, to study, to practice. And after a certain amount of practice in the classroom, I decide to give a specific task that I'm going to assess. Not necessarily to give a score. Sometimes to give a score, but not necessarily to give a score. It's more like progress, right? Again, not the product, but the process, and to check the progress. So a task, a regular task, and then I monitor my students. I just take notes. I always take notes when they are presenting or they are writing something. I always take notes. And so I have my rubric with me, you know, I monitor, and I grade, I evaluate. Now that we are having online classes, of course, we cannot do it as we do it face to face, but there are different ways that we can assign different tasks. And then if we assign 10 tasks, maybe to choose 1 or 2 that we can evaluate, not only 1, right? So maybe that can help with the not intimidating part, right? Not being like face to face and asking the early questions about something. Then we have the evaluation I want is to get criticism and suggestions from other people or teachers. Yes, we don't only want to hear, yes, great, but we also want to hear and know what we can improve. So that always helps, right? As a student, I'd rather have evaluation on 4 major skills, okay, writing, listening, reading, and speaking, because when the teacher does the evaluation. So it's like an integrated, right? An integrated skills task. Yes, okay. Then I think through reflection, it will be good for us to know our needs, okay, so that we can improve more. Yes, right? Reflection helps. It's very, very important to reflect on our own learning, our mistakes, the comments from the teachers, the comments from our classmates, and to take all of those aspects to improve, always to improve, not to feel sad about it, but to improve, right? And then number 4, can you recall examples of evaluation you have had in your experience as a language learner? Okay, so we have daily evaluation in the end of the learning progress. Okay, so yes, your teacher has the learning objective, different activities, the task, and then an evaluation. And the next class, another evaluation. Yes, this is very good, right? In the end of the semester, the final test. Okay, yes, that's very common too. Then we have my language teacher once asked me to read a word that I mispronounced. Then my lecturer asked me what I was trying to say and what it meant. Okay, yes. Okay. So a different type of evaluation, right? Okay, so mention this word, right? And then explain what you mean, right? And explain what the word means to see if you're using it probably in the correct context. So very interesting answers, right? Very interesting answers. You can go on. Don't worry. There's no deadline for this. You can go on and write if you haven't written yet. Yes, write it down. Write your answers, and no problem. I just wanted to see, right, your opinion about this, because as your professor mentioned at the beginning, it's very important. Evaluation is important, and it's a must, right? We need to evaluate. It's not, we cannot omit it. It's a need, yes. So we have a comment in the chat box. It says, I think intimidating here refers to what we will face when we fail the evaluation. Of course, we don't want to repeat the subject again in the next semester. No, I know, I understand. Nobody wants that, right? Just because we got a bad score. That thing feels intimidating for us. Yes. A failing score, and this is important for us to understand. A failing score doesn't mean that you're not good at the language. Okay? There are standards that we need to follow and that we need to respect, because our school, the university, tells us to assign a grade, and there's a minimum score, right? So there's nothing we can do about that as teachers. If you don't reach that score, that doesn't mean that you don't know anything or that your language skills are not good. What a failing score means is that you need to continue and you need to study a little bit more of the topics, right, that were covered during that course, so that you can move on to the second level, right? Why? Because if you don't have the base, the background, then it's going to be more difficult to go to the next one. But that doesn't mean, remember, a failing score doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means that you need to study and reflect on your learning and take responsibility of your own learning so that you can get to that learning objective that is necessary to go to the next level. Okay? Well, thank you very much for your answers. I have enjoyed your answers here and your honesty. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's go on. And remember, you can continue writing your answers there. Let me return to the presentation, okay? Just give me a second here. Okay, here I am. Let me present again. Let me show my screen. Okay, let's share it. And I think you can see it again, yes? All right, so let's continue. So again, let's go back a little bit, and we defined evaluation, right? As a way of to measure an object, right? A phenomenon, in this case, language learning, language progress, language proficiency. We want to see we're getting at the level that we can communicate efficiently with some other people. And within evaluation, we have these two lines, right, that are very common forms of evaluation. One is testing, that is objective, right? And the other one is assessment, that it's a little bit more subjective, right? Testing, it's more to the point whether an answer is right or wrong, whether assessment interprets a little bit more the answer, right? Now, within these two terms, we have also formative and summative assessment, right? Probably you have heard the terms. If you haven't heard the terms yet, maybe you will hear them later during the development of your language evaluation course, right? But here I want to explain to you, and let me just check the time. Okay, so formative assessment, right? What is it? As the name suggests, formative It's this formation, this progress that the learner has, right? And there are two aspects that I want to point out during this presentation. One is that a formative assessment is an ongoing performance of students as the course progresses, right? So if I take into account my course, right, one semester, right? So I'm going to evaluate from the beginning to the end, right? In an ongoing way. It's going back to the terms of traditional evaluation in the old paradigm and the new paradigm. That would be the new paradigm, right? More focused on the process, right? So what is one characteristic of formative assessment? And I like this part. Teachers can make appropriate mid-course pedagogical changes to reach goals. We can analyze how our students are doing in our course and to change it, to change something. Even if we had written beautiful lesson plans and a beautiful syllabus, because that's hard work too, we can make changes because we see that our students need those changes. We can change an evaluation. We can change a task. We can change an activity, right? If we believe that that's going to help our student, right? That's one way. Now, the other type of assessment is summative assessment, right? So as you must think by now, a summative assessment has to do with testing a little bit more, right? You have the picture here of a quiz, an exam, right? And you're assigned a grade A+, right? And what are some characteristics of summative assessment? One, it follows the idea that one size fits all. Why? Because remember, this has to do with the standard way, right? So with the test, with the TOEFL test, for example, with the IELTS, we test millions of test takers, right? So it's like one test measures the language proficiency of Indonesians, of Mexicans, of Saudis, of Haitians, right, etc. Right? So one test, right? So that's why it says one size fits all. That's why they are called standard tests, right? And it's given at the end of the term or end of unit tests. Usually we prepare our syllabus and we have like unit 1, unit 2, unit 3, 4, 5, or as many units as might be necessary. And then after each unit, you give a test. Then you teach the second unit, another test, right? These are a summative assessment. Not necessarily a test, but it's the most common type. Yes, because it can be another type of evaluation. But the test is one that usually fits this characteristic. Okay. So now I will provide some examples of assessment. Oops, sorry. Examples of assessment, right? And remember, when I refer to assessment here, right, it's including the evaluation term of testing and assessment per se, right? Evaluation as a whole here. And there are two types, remember. Formative, that evaluates more of the progress, and summative, that it's more like periods that we are evaluating, right? Beginning and the end of a term. So what's one example here? This one, as you can see here, it's a book review. Have you ever done this one? Maybe you can share it in the chat box. Okay. Have you ever done a book review? Have your teacher asked you to do book review for evaluation? Yes, yes.
I did.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I like it. I have done it as a student myself, and I have asked my students to do it as well, right? So book review, in this case, it's a very creative way. You can see here, okay, the title, right? The character, the favorite part, prediction, right? Some notes there, etc. So this is one way to evaluate. So I see that some of you are also familiar with this type of assessment, right? So the next one is the written text. Have you had this one? I think so, right? So write a paragraph or write an essay or write a couple of sentences, right? You are given a topic. So that's another example. Creative assignment. Have you done this one? I mean, not exactly like this, but something where maybe you need to do, you need to use your imagination and be creative and maybe write a poem, a song, or something. Have you done this one? Yes. Yes. Okay, I'm seeing essay. Yes, yes. I see a sad face in the essay. Sometimes it can be difficult, but very useful. Yes. Okay, so we have the creative assignment. We have one more, the rubric. I think somebody mentioned the rubric, right? The worksheet, right? And you are analyzing there if you fulfill some of these aspects. Yes. Then we have class discussion. I think you all have had this part, right? So you have class discussion. It can be group work, pair work, as a class, a debate, all right? A round table as well, right? And you're being evaluated. A very common type of evaluation for speaking, right? A presentation. Do you like presentations?
Of course.
No? Okay. Yeah, so we get nervous, right? Am I right? Do we get nervous for presentations?
Yes.
Yes, yes, I know. Test, of course, we have the famous test, right? Self-evaluation. Sometimes this is very difficult to do, right? Because we're evaluating ourselves. It is not the teacher that is telling us what we are failing, and sometimes we can be very, very critical of ourselves, right? So, but it's also part of evaluating, right? And the interview, right? Through an interview, we also do many aspects. We can evaluate, right? And not only speaking, but also this part of confidence, right? And because in real life, we are interviewed for a job, right? For an academic, an academic interview to, to have access to another opportunity abroad, etc. Right? Okay, so I'm just reading the. Yes. Okay. So, well, basically, I think we're about to finish. I have an activity, but I'm afraid we're not going to have time to do it. So I think I'm going to just postpone it for the next session. Is it okay? Is it okay if I postpone the task for the next session? Or I can share the link and you can have a week to do it, right? And then we can share the results. What do you think? What would you prefer? So option 1 would be as a task. Okay. And option 2 would be do it next class. Which one do you like better? Option 1 or option 2? You can write it here in the chat box.
Next class maybe, ma'am.
Next class?
To you. Actually, it's up to you, ma'am.
No, it's okay. We can decide together. I like it like this better. Doing next class? Okay. Yes, I know. And I ask because sometimes we have so many things to do in front of the computer, right? So you have your assignments for your classes. So it's okay. So I think most of you say option 2. So then we will start with a review of all of these terms next class. And then we will do the activity and continue with some other activities that I have planned for you. Okay, so thank you very much for attending today. And I'll see you next class. That is, I don't know if it's Saturday, Friday or Saturday, but they will inform you when the session is gonna take place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Most welcome, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you, ma'am.
Audience, do you have any questions anymore?
Yes, feel free to ask any questions. You have my email also. I don't know if you have shared my email, City, with them. But if because I think it's in the first slide, but I have stopped sharing. I will write it here in the chat box. And also, if you have any question, you can email me. Okay, it's there. Great. Well,
Yeah, right.
Well, have a good day there. It's night here. So
Okay, Gandy, I think this is the end of our meeting today. But don't forget, audience, we have one meeting next week together with Gandy, Griselda.
don't worry, Gandy.
About
Just Gandy.
language learning evaluation. Save the date. And thank you, Gandy, for your nice cooperation in joining as a keynote speaker in our international class program. Have a nice weekend. Thank you, Gandy.
My
See you again
pleasure.
next
Have a nice
week.
weekend. See you next week. Bye.
Okay,
Bye, everybody.
let's recite hamdalah together. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin.
Alhamdulillahirabbil
Assalamualaikum
alamin.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you,
You're
miss.
welcome.
You, Miss Ma'am.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Gandy. See you next
My
week.
pleasure. Thank you, Mbak Ima, Zahra.
Belum ada jam 9 ya?
11.
Jam 11 ya, kurang ya?
Ora, wes kok. Jam gue sih jam 1. Jam 1 lebih 2 menit.
Oh, malah lebih. Oh, jam ini beda berarti.
Ya, tutup ya.
Ya.
Alhamdulillah.
Ini hostnya siapa? Saya izin live ya. Halo Bu Saida. Oh, lagi telepon.
Minggir.
Iya, ada keperluan.
Enggak, hanya di kantor aja. Double kan? Laptop dengan komputer. Double, Mam. Mbak Ima live YouTube Mbak Ima.
wala sisa may itu jangan. I got it. Yeah. Gila pedes banget cabai, sumpah. Lebih dari cabai mersun kali kena deh. Saya cabai santan nih, nggak cabai boros. Jangan kasih jangan dalam. Pakai padi lagi. Nah, sayurnya.